Welcome to the Hot Cage Podcast presented by CageWell. This is the Hot Cage Podcast for April 30th, 2013. The subjects we will discuss on this podcast include, but are not limited to, the future for two top contenders at 205 pounds, who Roy Nelson's manager doesn't want to see him fight, what's next for Chael Sonnen and all the relevant fights for UFC 159, Sonnen versus Jones. Let's start this podcast the way we start them all by welcoming in my tag team partner, TJ Craig. TJ, how are you?
Hey, John, I'm doing great. Did we have a fight this past weekend? Oh, that's right, we did.
I think something was said.
Yeah, I've already forgot about him. That's how bad it was. It was just a weird night. But I'm ready to talk about some stuff. So let's get moving.
All right, let's hop right into the flurry. We'll hit the headlines. And first up in the flurry, Ariel Helwani reported on UFC Tonight that Alexander Gustafsson wants to fight Lyoto Machida. Lyoto Machida obviously wants to fight Alexander Gustafsson. So it looks like we have a number one contender fight. What are your thoughts on this fight? Do you think either of them should just wait their turn for Jones, or should they fight each other first?
No, I think it absolutely makes sense. One, because Jones is out with the hurt toe. He'll be out, they said 6 to 8 weeks before he can start fighting again. But both of them being on kind of a layoff, it gives them a great fight with two top contenders to measure their skills. They haven't been in the ring for a little bit, so it gives them that step up. And time they go through that fight, then they'll bounce right into the Jones fight. Probably, I'd say probably 3 to 6 months after that. So I think they're right on schedule. I think it's an awesome matchup. It will really show us where Gustafsson's at and how Machida is going to measure up to somebody a little bit taller and with that reach.
I think this helps both fighters out a lot. I think for Gustafsson, it gives him a high-level opponent who is tricky, just like John Jones. And I think for Machida, it gives him a taller fighter to deal with to prepare him for John Jones. So I think, listen, they're the logical number one and number two, and it makes a lot of sense for them to fight each other. Finally, I haven't liked the way the 205-pound division's been going. Obviously, the champions fought Vitor Belfort and Chael Sonnen, so you can't be too crazy about those fights. But I like this fight a lot. I think that it would really go a long way to having them both truly earn the shot, because Machida kind of fell into it after he had a very unimpressive performance. Gustafsson's been moving right along, but I like this fight a lot. All right, up next in the flurry, I want to talk about Chael Sonnen said that he is not retiring. He wants to stay at 205 pounds, and in so many words, he called out Wanderlei Silva. So they have a little bit of history. I'm not sure if everybody knows, but they had a little bit of an altercation on the van. Wanderlei Silva said, in Brazil, when you run your mouth like Chael does, you lose your teeth. To which Chael just kind of stared at him. So this fight's been a long time coming. What are your thoughts on this fight?
At 205. Well, first, Chael said he didn't want to retire. That he had some more stuff to prove, and he didn't want to go out like that. Boy, did he go just to calling out people already. That's the typical Chael. Get another fight, and Wanderlei Silva is the one he's targeting. At 205, it's an interesting fight. We saw Wanderlei take out Brian Stann his last fight, who's been working on his wrestling but has better stand-up. So it's going to be interesting. Chael's going to try to take it down. Wanderlei is going to try and stop it, knock him out, and these two are going to bang. The fight for both of them is, where do they go next? Is this really get them anywhere in any position? I don't know if it does, especially at the 205 division. He just lost to Jones. So I don't know if that really pays off, but it's going to be a great fight. I mean, it's a great undercard fight. It'll be on the main event, on the main card, but it won't be a headliner. So I think it's interesting, and I'd see it. I'd watch it.
Well, and the funny thing about Twitter today was that everybody was kind of discrediting Wanderlei Silva and kind of building up Chael Sonnen, because they were saying his last two fights he's lost to guys who are undefeated in the UFC basically, and then Wanderlei. But I think Wanderlei looked good against Brian Stann. I think Wanderlei's looked better in his recent fights than Chael looked in his. Now, in fairness to Chael, he's fighting higher competition, but that's his choice. So I don't know, man. I like this fight a lot. I like the guy's got some juice. Now they're talking about making it the headliner for Fox Sports 1. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't, unless they do it in Japan.
Yeah.
I only say that. I mean, the only reason I say that is because I mean, Fox Sports 1, for your first fight, you want to come out swinging, and I don't think those are the two that you want to headline the initial of the Fox Sports 1 to come out swinging like that. I don't think those two are the ones you really want to put on a main card, only because I think you need somebody stout in that main event so you can pull more attention. If you're a true MMA fan, or even with history, you want somebody that's going to pull some clout for you. You don't want two guys that are going to be great fighters, but there's nothing to watch it for. I mean, there's no title contention. There's nothing that's going to get him a number one contendership. I mean, it's basically no meaning except for these two dudes just want to fight because they have some beef together. That's it. So I'm not so sure that they should headline it.
Yeah, I agree. I wouldn't look for that fight to be a headliner, but, especially the problem would be if they put it in Japan, you're not going to put your first Fox Sports 1 card on a weird time zone situation or tape delayed or whatever. So I don't know that. Yeah, I'm really interested in the fight, but we'll see. They sure as hell ain't going to put it in Brazil. Because Chael got attacked by somebody at the tough finale that was Brazilian. He put his ass in Brazil, man. He's gonna get a clip for sure. That kid will go out, for fucking good. All right, so next up, okay, so Roy Nelson, again on UFC Tonight, Ara Helwani reported this, that Roy Nelson's manager says he has nothing to gain by fighting Daniel Cormier, and he doesn't want to see him have that fight. He prefers him fighting Bigfoot or Junior Dos Santos or even Mark Hunt, which is weird because Mark Hunt would be coming off a loss. But they pretty much agreed to fight each other on Twitter. They're both intrigued by the fight. So are you intrigued by the fight, and what do you make of his manager saying he doesn't like to fight for Roy?
You and I talked about this, and I'm going to have to agree with his manager. I think he keeps on beating great guys, and even though DC had a win, it wasn't a great showing. So it really doesn't put him anywhere up where he should be, because Big Country's been on a roll lately. I think he should fight exactly those three people that his manager said: Junior Dos Santos, Bigfoot, or Hunt. I think that's a better matchup for him. It gives him more. It gives him more sustainability with that fight. So I'm saying, yeah, pass up on the DC fight because DC's looking to go down. So there's nothing really that's going to benefit Big Country out of that. If he beats him, then where does he go? Then he gets another 2 fights before he gets a championship ring at it. So, I don't think it's a good fight. I think you should hold out and get one of the top 3.
I agree. Honestly, I don't really know what it does for either fighter. Like you said, I mean, obviously, if he beats DC and DC goes down, what have you accomplished? And if DC loses to him, then you're kind of going down. I don't know. For me, we talked to Larry Pepe a couple of days ago, and Larry doesn't like the Brandon Vera fight at 205. There's some more interesting fights that he thinks are out there for DC than that. But yeah, I don't see what this does for either guy really. I don't see what the attraction is other than two quote unquote MMA fat guys fighting. I actually tweeted that if you saw both these guys with their shirts off and you didn't know shit about MMA, how would you react? Would you think these are two of the best fighters in the world, or would you be like, who are these two assholes? But, they're two of the best fighters in the world, but it's just interesting the way they're built. So, I don't know, man. I'm with you. I don't like the fight. I think DC should just, I honestly think that he's waiting to see what happens with Kane. If Kane loses or wins, I don't know. Do you think maybe him and Kane have an understanding that kind of a loser leaves the division sort of a thing? If Kane loses to Bigfoot, do you think he would go to 205? Or is he going to be a heavyweight forever?
Oh, he's got to be a heavyweight forever. Look how big he is. It'd be a lot more for him to try to drop to 205. DC is the only one that could probably do it. And, it's going to still take him some time because he has some weight to drop. But he's only would he come in at 235? It already looked like he was dropping a little bit from his last bout. So, I don't think maybe they have an understanding if he loses that DC will get his chance, but I still see him going to 205. I think if he wants to run for championship in 205, he needs somebody besides Machida and Gustafsson to make a run for the belt. So I like DC dropping to 205, fighting somebody at 205, and then picking up that number 1 contender spot or going straight for the belt.
Well, yeah, depending on how fast they can get this Gustafsson fight I know DC doesn't want to sit out, man, but it would make sense for him to maybe fight the loser. So I don't know. That's a while to wait, and I don't know when they're going to have those two fight. But yeah, I just don't see why he's screwing around at heavyweight unless he has aspirations there. Might as well just go to 205. If Kane's showing no desire of leaving, why are we still playing this heavy? It seems like there's more to the story we're not hearing. All right, up next in the flurry. Ara Helwani again, UFC Tonight, reached out to Anderson Silva, trying to get some more information about the situation with him calling Dana White about a super fight. Anderson has said that he is 100% focused on Chris Weidman. So my question for you is, who do you think he called Dana White about? A lot of people are saying John Jones, but everybody seems to think he's focused on GSP. Who do you think he called Dana White about with the super fight, and do you think he's 100% focused on Chris Weidman?
He better be 100% focused on Chris Weidman because that kid's got some wrestling, some better stand-up than Chael Sonnen did. And look what Chael did in the first fight, even though they say Anderson was hurt. But still, the number one recipe that we found out to get Anderson Silva is some wrestling skills. And Weidman has them, and he's definitely got some ground skills to go along with it. So I think he better be 100%. But I guarantee he's saying, I'm 100%. If he called Dana, this was probably exactly how it went. He probably said, I'm 100% ready for Weidman. I'm going to kill him. And then I want that super fight with John Jones, and I'm out. That's how that conversation probably went. So, I believe he sees money in the long run, and he sees that everybody wants to see him and John Jones fight. So he's probably saying, I'm 100% ready for Weidman. I'm going to take him out, and then I want John Jones in the super fight. And if I'm guessing, that's how that conversation went. And guess what, man? I think Weidman has a great chance, but I want to see Anderson Silva because I want to see Anderson Silva and John Jones fight for the light heavyweight title.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you a weird question here. Do you think that despite the fact that Chael Sonnen's had some success with taking Anderson down and all that, do you think that maybe that's because Anderson traditionally kind of feels his opponents out and all that? Do you think that he could just go into a fight with Weidman and just kind of say, I'm looking to knock this kid out from word go? Like, soon as Anderson just came in there loose, let his hands go, dude, from Jump Street, and just do you think, I guess my larger question is, do you think that would better serve Anderson than kind of waiting it out and trying to deny these guys takedowns? You think he should just get loose, and if they want to rush in, let it fly?
Yeah, I think that's going to benefit. Come in, let him come in and work those knees, coming in and look for the KO quickly, because the quickly you can do it. Let me tell you, if Anderson Silva comes in and wins decisively against Chris Weidman, I'm going to tell you, he jumps Machida and Gustafsson for the title. Guaranteed, because that's dollars, and that's what everybody wants to see, and that's a super fight. We're talking Dallas Stadium. We're talking Brazil in the soccer stadium. They could put it goddamn on the moon and people would fly there to see it. So that's exactly what I think what he's going to come do. He's going to come out, try to knock him out quick, and then roll right up in that super fight. I think he doesn't want Jones to wait and fight for the title. I think he wants to beat Weidman, especially now that Jones is hurt with that toe, and let him recover in that, and bam, we see a super fight.
All right, I'm going to ask you kind of a crazy question to end the flurry. It's, not anything that I'm taking too seriously. I'm just kind of wondering your thoughts on it. John Jones, with his next title defense, passes Tito Ortiz for the most title defenses of all time in the light heavyweight division. Would you at all entertain the idea of letting Tito Ortiz come out of retirement and defend his streak? It's been talked about on Twitter, so I figured I'd throw it out there.
Man, what is this, like WrestleMania? I mean, what we going out to, bringing the Nature Boy Ric Flair in to pass his time? No, you don't bring him in. It just, there's no sense, that makes no sense whatsoever. One, you can't risk John Jones getting hurt at that young age. For some reason, something happens in the ring, and he does get hurt. I'm not saying he get beat, but you just can't risk that. There's no, I don't even want to comment on it. No.
Okay, no, I understand. The only thing I'm saying is I don't know that he's that less deserving than Vitor Belfort was. But, I think Belfort's a a legit guy at 85, but just to walk into a title shot, and Chael for that matter. I mean, they're both legit guys, but to walk into a 205-pound title shot, to say Tito Ortiz is less deserving than those two guys to just walk in, I don't know. Anyway, my other point is this. Do you think, what are your thoughts on, somebody said, and we're going to get to the fights here in a sec, but before we get to them, I want to ask you one question. Well, you know what? Let's go right into the fights because it kind of has to do with the fights. So let's do that instead. TJ, so let's get to the business of UFC 159. It's in the books. I don't know if it's one for the history books, but you know it's a wrap. So, what? Let me get your thoughts on 159, just kind of as a whole.
You know, as a whole, it was nothing to brag about. You know, like I said, I was thinking about this, and here's what I'm thinking. You know, the week before the Fox card was dynamite from top to bottom, and then you give me this card, and you make me pay for it, and basically, it didn't live up to the hype. There was nothing to it, so it was a little bit disappointing. Jimbo in the Pat Healy fight was basically the one that saved the day, and the rest of it was just mediocre.
Yeah, I agree. So let's start to run down some of the things that went down during the fight. So the bonuses: sub of the night was Pat Healy, KO of the night was Roy Nelson. Pat Healy and Jim Miller got together for the fight of the night. Some interesting facts about the fight: John Jones set the record for the longest winning streak in the light heavyweight division with 9 in a row. Chael Sonnen suffered a second consecutive loss for the first time since 2004. That's been nearly 10 years. So that's just with the first fight. Some information from that. So let's get into the particulars of 159 as far as Jones and Sonnen. I know you weren't crazy about the matchup, neither was I. So did it live up to what you thought it was, or what did you even make of it?
You know, I didn't have really any expectations. I didn't think that Chael could really compete with John Jones. A high difference, even with his wrestling. I don't think Chael could go in there and impose his will upon John Jones with somebody with that kind of reach and takedown defense. You know, so kind of, I didn't expect much out of it, and we didn't get much out of it. John Jones finished it, and just like I thought, and now it's time to move on.
He did finish it, and it was the first time he finished a fight since Machyshenko, August of 2010. He tied Chuck Liddell for the most finishes in the light heavyweight division. So, I mean, his career is moving right along. Now, do you think fighting guys like Sonnen and Belfort have been kind of a detriment to his career, or is it set him back, or is he's John Jones and he's going to keep doing what he's doing, and you set him up and he's going to knock him down?
Yeah, I mean, but look at his whole. I mean, look at the people that he's beaten. I mean, if you look at it, he's cleaned up that division, and Belfort and and Sonnen. Those were just two guys that got it because there's not anybody else he can fight besides rematching people that are in that division. There's nobody in there that I don't think that can really compete with them. Machida choked out standing up. Gustafsson is the only one he hasn't really matched up to, and I don't think there'll be much of an issue with them, but that's something to see. So yeah, I mean, what's next for John Jones is the question.
Well, what was next for him was surgery. So he broke his toe. Chael Sonnen didn't have one damn thing to do with that broken toe. It was merely that John Jones is so great that he, broke his toe fucking some guy up. So what do you think? I mean, the toe is pretty gnarly. It's been stitched. How do you think this affects him moving forward? Is his greatest foe going to end up being a toe?
Yeah, it might be. They said it wasn't fractured, was what they're saying. That I read reports on that it wasn't really fractured, and he can go back to training, I think, in 6 to 8 weeks. So that's really, that's a layoff, a little break, and then he gets right back in the gym. And with his work ethic, it's not like he's skipping a beat. I'm sure he'll stay healthy, eating wise, and not gain a lot of weight. And then he's right back at it. So yeah, pretty much his biggest setback so far has been his big toe. And that's great. I mean, the kid's young and hungry, and he's just moving right along. So, with that Anderson Silva we were talking about earlier, I think that's probably the next competition we'll see is those two guys in the ring for him. And because I don't see Machida, if he wins, I don't see that much. It's probably going to be another finish or might go a little bit longer because he's been in the ring with him before. And Gustafsson, I think he has it probably a little bit better because of a stand-up game, but nothing really that highlights me and gets me fucking burning on the inside that I really want to see it besides the Anderson Silva fight. That's what I'm going for.
So, quick question, and we'll move on. Who's the best competition moving forward for Jon Jones? Is it going to be Lyoto Machida? Is it going to be Alexander Gustafsson? Is it going to be Anderson Silva? Or is it going to be the heavyweight division?
I think there's two. I think you go with Anderson Silva. I think that's the number one competition he has. And then I don't want to say he should move up to heavyweight because he's just so young. And what's that going to do with his career if he can't gain enough weight to meet those 260 heavyweights? You know what I mean? And we really haven't seen him really dominate in the stand-up game with the punching power. He's going to have to get bigger. He's going to have to put on some muscle and work that striking. So I still think it's a little young for him. But again, man, who are you going to put in front of him in the 205 that's really going to compete besides Anderson Silva? So we're in between a rock and a hard spot on this kid.
And it's tough because he's got a skinny frame and there's plenty of room for muscle, and he could bulk up big time, and we'll definitely have to see. So I'm interested to see how he goes moving forward. I'm actually working on a piece for Cage Wall where I kind of see him almost. This is another crazy ass John Franklin thing, but I think that maybe there might be a hiatus in the middle of his career, man. I think he might get bored and just, I don't know, go do something else. And he might have two stretches of his career where he just has a dominant run as a champion when he's a young guy, man, around 28, 29. You beat Anderson Silva, you beat Cormier, maybe you beat Cain Velasquez. Maybe you don't even fight guys that are bigger than that, but you beat all those guys. Maybe the next big guy we haven't even ever heard of yet that's going to contend with him, but there might be this space in between where he goes on a early run. The first half of his career is like young GSP, and the second half of his career is like old Anderson Silva. Who knows? All right, so let's move on to the co-main event, if you can call it that. Alan Belcher fought Michael Bisping. A lot of trash was talked. Like we talk about in the past, man, these trash-talking fights, they can go one of two ways. Either the guys stand there and don't want to get knocked out by each other, or, they really go after it. So what did you think about this fight, and did we learn anything?
No, we really didn't learn anything out of this fight, really. I thought Belcher came in there too relaxed. He had his hands dropped. He was smiling. He was basically, to me, it just looked like he was telling everybody, look, Michael Bisping can't knock me out like he said he can, and he wasn't looking for the finish. He connected a few times, but he just wasn't himself. I don't know if he was hurt beforehand, and then at the end you got the eye poke, which Bisping, obviously it was legit because he got 8 stitches up in that lid, so it was a legitimate eye poke. But other than that, man, Michael came in and worked it around a little bit, punched, and it just wasn't for me. For talking that much shit, nobody went in there to try to finish each other off. They didn't want to get knocked out. Bisping did what he had to do to win, and then he had the eye poke, so he was going to win either way. So it was very uneventful for me. I didn't learn much, and it definitely didn't catapult Bisping to get a title shot. It just, Bisping is who he is. He's that guy that can finish people on the 2 through 10 list, but when the fight counts as a number one contender, he just doesn't have what it takes to go over the top.
And the weird thing for me is that, obviously the UFC is going to set him up the way they want to set him up, but for a guy like Bisping, he was avoiding this fight for a while, and realistically, at the end of the day, he didn't really gain anything from it. It's an interesting situation where he found himself, like you said, Alan Belcher seemed very content to just, almost in a sense, win that little bullshit Twitter bet they had about the Bisping could knock me out, and that was enough for him. It was like, I'm just going to go in there and piss Michael Bisping off further. But you're not really a champion and you're not really a winner when you're satisfied just not getting knocked out by somebody. So we did learn something that Alan Belcher's content to waste his time in an octagon for 15 minutes trying not to get knocked out. And we also learned that Michael Bisping doesn't have a whole lot of power. Now, Belcher's not necessarily somebody with a glass jaw, but at the same time, if you're Michael Bisping, you should just run through a guy like Alan Belcher, and he didn't. So, I don't know, man. Moving forward, is there anything you like for these guys, or are you really just disappointed in the whole thing and want to kind of wash your hands of them for a while?
Right now, it didn't show me anything. I'm kind of washing my hands of these two guys. I will say that you're right. Bisping doesn't have that much power because he knocked Belcher. He caught Belcher a couple times, and Belcher just fucking walked through it like it was nothing. So, right off the top of my head, I don't have much. I think honestly, Belcher fell in the ranks, and Bisping didn't gain anything. So, no, I'm kind of washing my hands for right now.
After the fight, a few things happened. Like you said, Alan Belcher got 8 stitches in his eyelid. And Michael Bisping came out saying that he has some sort of a neck condition. It seems degenerative in the nature that he's saying it. Do you think it had anything to do with the performance, and do you think it's going to affect him moving forward?
I don't. It might affect him moving forward just because in the long run with the age and the seriousness of it. Did it affect this fight? I don't know. He did it. I mean, let's look back at his couple, his last few fights. It just, let's just call what Bisping is. He's a good MMA fighter, but he's not a great fighter. He can match up well, like I said, with the number 2 or 3 guy down the list, but that number 1 contender spot, he just can't get over that hump, and I don't think he ever will, especially this late in his career.
Well, he's in a very unique position in that he's like you said, he's got an analyst future. He's obviously the biggest fighter to come out of England, and he's probably going to win 85%, 90% of his fights in his life, never be a champion, and go out on his own terms. He's never going to get cut. So, I mean, he's gonna carve out a nice little spot for him in MMA history, but you're right, he's probably never going to be a champion, and neck injury or no neck injury, I mean, he wasn't dropping kids 5 years ago, so he's never been somebody really with true, power. Obviously, when he was younger, he had a little more power than he does now, but, yeah, I think we can kind of close the book on these guys for a little bit until they do something to warrant us reopening it. All right, so Cheick Kongo fought Roy Nelson in the next fight, and not much really there to be said about it. It was the knockout of the night. Roy threw a fastball and struck Kongo out. Nice overhand right. Dropped him, finished him on the ground with strikes. There's not really too much to say about the fight. I'll get your thoughts on it, but then what do you see for Roy moving forward?
It was he showed us again that he's gaining more power in that hand, because when he connected with that overhand right, it still wasn't a flush hit. It was it made contact, but it wasn't flush. And you saw what it did to drop Kongo, and then he finished out with that right, kind of like that underhook punch, and it was lights out for him. Next I see for him, I would definitely like to see him, like we talked earlier, Dos Santos, Bigfoot. I wouldn't even mind seeing him get in the title fight just to throw a little bit of mix up in that heavyweight, on the next round. So I think he deserves, one of those guys, and stay away from DC, and let's see what he's got. He's been on a good run. So what we saw of this is, he's got great power.
Yeah, I know these guys kind of try and cultivate their careers in the way they want them to be, but I disagree in the sense that everybody says it's a bad fight for him to fight Mark Hunt coming off a loss should he lose to JDS. I don't know, man. I disagree with that. I'd like to see those two guys fight. But you can make a case that JDS is getting a title shot if he wins, but you can make a case that he deserves a rematch with JDS. So if he fights Hunt, JDS wins the belt or loses, either way. He went all 3 rounds with JDS, so I think that's a fair rematch for Roy. But I think for now, I'd put him in there with Hunt. I think it's a fight the fans want to see. I think, and I'll get to this later in my finish strong, I just think that DC needs to kind of wash his hands of the heavyweight division and just move on if he's not going to go for the belt. All right, up next, another fight where there was plenty of shit talked on and about Twitter, on and about press conferences, what have you. Phil Davis, Vinny Magalhaes Really an uneventful fight. Phil looked sharp. Vinny looked not that sharp on his feet. Phil didn't look sharp in the sense that I can't wait to see Phil Davis fight again, but he certainly outclassed Vinny Magalhaes. So give me your thoughts on the fight and kind of explain to me why Vinny took this fight and went kind of Frank Mir on us and didn't make any attempts to pull Phil into his world.
Phil did look a lot better. His stand-up game's got much improved from his last one, especially from when he fought Rashad Evans. He's been working on that stand-up, which good. Used his wrestling to use the takedown defense, what there was for Vinny trying to take him down. But Vinny didn't pull guard or anything like that. Vinny just looked like he was out of shape a little bit. He didn't come in for all that shit talking. He really didn't seem like to come in prepared enough for the fight. He's a world-class jiu-jitsu fighter. Didn't try to pull guard. Wasn't really trying to work the work downs. I guess he thought he could stand up, and he lost that. What came out of this fight are two things. One, Vinny needs to reevaluate if he's really going to come into the ring and be an MMA fighter and to work his ground and try to work the takedowns better and work a little bit on the stand-up. And two, Phil Davis has gotten stronger in his stand-up game.
That's true, and I don't know, man. I don't know what I make of Vinny. He's one of these guys where I don't think he's as evolved as a fighter as Damian Maia is. But there's these guys, man, that have their jiu-jitsu game, and they I don't know why they go away from it. I think that it's important that you are a well-rounded fighter, but why is it that the BJ Penns, Frank Mirs, Vinny Magalhaes, why do they go away from their jiu-jitsu when it's so far superior to every other fighter? Is it laziness? Is it what do you think is the reason why they go away from it?
It's usually once you find that you have a little bit of power, you knock somebody out before you think you can do it to everybody. And what got you there was not that. What got you there was either your wrestling or your jiu-jitsu, your ground and pound. And people, once they test the knockout, they think they can do it all the time, and they kind of abandon the game, which has left people like your Frank Mirs and your BJ Penn in the position that they were in, So you got to be well-rounded in today's MMA. You got to definitely have a complete game, but you still can't abandon the whole, what got you there.
And in fairness, it's not meant to be disrespectful to BJ Penn or Frank Mir, because in all honesty, Vinny Magalhaes is not on their level. The thing I think that's more frustrating about him is that he's not knocking guys out. At least Frank Mir, I think the worst thing ever happened to Frank Mir was when he knocked out Nogueira, because then he thought he was some sort of a powerhouse, and that was that, So I don't know, man. I think for me, I just think it just gets frustrating when you see guys showing no sense of urgency in the discipline that they're best at when they're clearly losing a fight. So real quick, just to get us caught up, I haven't really been doing a good job so far of doing this, but I want to get us caught up on the main card results. So, of course, we know John Jones defeated Chael Sonnen, round one with punches. Bisping, it was 30-27, 30-27, 29-28. He won a technical unanimous decision, which is because there was the eye poke. He was ahead on the cards. They gave it to him. Roy Nelson defeated Czech Congo via the KO in round one at 2:03. And now we're caught up. Phil Davis defeated Vinny Magalhaes 30-27, 30-27. And, of course, there's always got to be the one rogue judge, 29-28, which brings us to the fight of the night. Pat Bam Bam Healy defeated Jim Miller via submission, rear naked choke, round 3 at 4:02 of that round, in front of Jim Miller's home crowd, New Jersey. Let me get your thoughts on the fight.
Hey, I think it was an outstanding fight. Both of those guys came in, and you know what? If two people are cut from the same cloth as these two guys, have a great stand-up, can go to the ground, work you there too. And it was just Pat Healy came in back from Strikeforce and needed to make his mark on the UFC, and he did. And he looked great doing it. He looked great on the ground, looked great standing up. But let's not Jim Miller also looked great too. That kid's a fighter. He's a fighter's fighter. He'll take it anywhere, anytime, any place. So what we learned is Pat Healy. If you didn't forget, he had a chance to challenge Melendez in Strikeforce for the title, and they never got that. He did lose to Josh Thompson, but coming over, he put his name right back in the hat for number 1 and number 2 spot. So he did awesome. It was a great fight. It was fight of the night, and it was probably the most energetic fight on the card. So it kind of, if it wasn't for that fight, this card would have been even worse. But it puts Pat Healy right up in the mix, man. And what's to say that we don't see, we don't know what Bennett Henderson, who's going to fight them. Are we going to see a Josh Thompson Healy fight next for the since Maynard and Grant fight? So we're going to see this fight coming up next for the number 1 contender after that. And that's a possibility. So hey, that's where we're at.
We talked about it with Larry Pepe about this. It's a shame that Gray Maynard and Josh Thompson are training partners. I'd love to see those two fight, and then TJ Grant fight Pat Healy, and then we figure the whole thing out, see who gets to fight Ben Henderson. I like Pat Healy a lot. I wouldn't mind seeing Pat Healy fight Donald Cerrone. There's a lot of guys in that division that I think would be, if you're Pat Healy, it's tough, man. You come in and you take Jim Miller out, and who was the guy that was up at the top of the division not so long ago, and so what's next for you? Should you fight a guy like Cerrone? Should you fight a guy like Gallard? I mean, are you kind of taking a step back if you do that? So, I don't know, man. I don't think he deserves Thompson, because I think Thompson deserves the shot. So, I would rather him fight, Maynard or Grant. I am, dude, because he came in and took Nate Diaz apart. And I'm not saying that Nate Diaz is the toughest guy that ever walked the earth, but there have been a lot of guys that have fought him, including the current champion, and didn't take him out. So
listen, but I'm still going back, man. I can't deny history, and history says that when Josh Thompson was in Strikeforce, he lost twice to Gilbert Melendez. Yes,
one of them was highly disputed.
Still lost.
True.
That's the point.
Beat Pat Healy though.
It wasn't a highly, but it was. He lost the fight. He lost twice to Melendez. So honestly, I would rather see the Pat Healy fight and Thompson fight again. That's where I think the mix is. Like, you don't put Healy with somebody that's a 10-9 or an 8 even. Move him on up. Definitely deserves it. He was going to have a title shot against Melendez over in Strikeforce. He earned it there. So throw him in the ring with Thompson again. Those two dudes came over and dominated their fights. Thompson really dominated. Healy dominated. Put him in the ring. That's your next contender.
I wonder what the legality of taking someone out of a bout agreement that's already been signed, because you don't see it a lot, but it makes a lot of sense maybe for Gray Maynard to fight Gil Melendez. And then Thompson fights Grant. I mean, I know it's hard to back somebody out of a fight you've already given him. I get it, but it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense with the fact that Gilbert Melendez, there was some controversy as to whether or not he won that Ben Henderson fight. So maybe he deserves a shot at Gray Maynard. What do you do with Melendez next?
Yeah, that's the question. That's a 4-way. Listen, I don't think the Gray Maynard TJ Grant fight really decides who the number 1 contender is. I mean, you got Grant.
That's according to Dana.
Yeah, and I bet you he thinks twice before he says anything else again, because now he's in the rock and a hard spot. Because now you had Healy come over one, you had Thompson come over and fucking dominate. So, and then you call Maynard and a Grant as a number 1 contender. What? I mean, he needs to take his own advice, and he usually doesn't talk that in the scrums, man, about who's going to fight who next. And then he broke the rule, and now his ass is pinned up against it. So what people really want to see is not that fight, I promise.
Well, maybe we've talked in the past about putting Twitter handles together for, like, little things that are, like Dana's shit list and all that. Maybe we should do one called Joe Silva's Big Board, because I wonder if in his office he has a big board that kind of plots out the future of the UFC, and maybe in his eyes, he figures if Grant and Maynard fight, it buys me time with Thompson, it buys me time with Healy. Instead of putting those guys in there so quick, it kind of stretches this division out a little bit, gives me some time. So, I don't know, man. You know me, I'm a conspiracy theorist, so I just think that if you put the fight that everybody wants to see right away, then, it almost makes more sense for Silva to fight Weidman before. Go ahead.
with that talent-rich division, dude, you could take literally the top 8 guys, and you can run that forever because those guys are great. I mean, they're all been at number 1.
Henderson's beat most of them.
Yeah, I mean, he has, well, we call him the king of decisions. So he hasn't really, I mean, he's beat him, yes, but he hasn't beat him.
Yeah.
So, you know, like that Frankie Edgar fight, I thought he lost one of those. Gilbert Melendez could have won either way. Didn't really think he dominated that fight. So, I mean, you can run the gauntlet on that division, man, and those guys, all those guys could hold the belt.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's a stacked division. So, I guess my other question, and we'll get on to a couple other fights that involve this as well. But I mean, is the theme lately in the UFC been hashtag Strikeforce hungry? Because all these Strikeforce guys are coming in and eating children, dude. They're not screwing around, man. They're a bunch of Mike Tysons coming in here, just running through folks. So, you know, Pat Healy's no exception. Sarah McMahon looked fantastic. We'll get to her. I think Caraway has a Strikeforce history, doesn't he? Jordan Meehan before he ran into Matt Brown. A lot of guys are coming in, man, really just making nothing but destruction. So let me have you touch on that and then get to Sarah McMahon, who's someone who else we were impressed with this weekend.
Yeah, those guys coming over from Strikeforce, man, are really making a spot. And it kind of takes you back to about, you know, the argument of who was better, the UFC or Strikeforce. Well, let me tell you, those guys coming over from Strikeforce, they're making the names for themselves. You can even go down. The only one that came over, Marquardt lost, but Tyrone Woodley came over and fucking dominated with a knockout that I didn't even think would happen that quick. Hillary Thompson, Melendez, I think he could have won that fight, could have won either way. Those guys are coming over and just demolishing people, really making their mark. So yeah, it makes you question about how when everybody was comparing back in the day that those guys couldn't come over and compete. I can call bullshit on that now because that's exactly what it is. It's bullshit. They're proving us all wrong. And then next with Sarah McMahon, great. But you know what? Sheila Gaff came in as a wrestler, and you saw in the first 10 seconds she came running on like it was like running from the bulls. She was trying to run right into McGaff, took a double leg, and pretty much that was it for the night. She looked good on the ground, got her in the crucifix, and was ground and pounding. Call it a night. So she looked good. Looks like she had some great, ground game. Can move around a little bit. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, my quick question on the Sarah McMahon front is another former Strikeforce fighter. Do you think her or anybody else has anything for Ronda Rousey?
Competition, man. Those girls go in and bang. So, yeah, I think you keep winning. If you're a female, absolutely, you can match her up. You just, she can run the gauntlet because they've been putting on nothing but good fights. She beat Liz Carmouche in the first round, but hey, Carmouche had her in a hard spot. And so you still have a ring of fighters that you can go through, and it's going to be competitive. That's what everybody wants to see is competition. She might throw the armbar at you, but one of the times it's going to be more interesting. Ronda Rousey's fights are going to come out of that first round.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean that's why they fight them because no one would have ever thought that Liz Carmouche would get Rousey's back, and no one would have. Most people didn't think Kat Zingano was going to beat Miesha Tate, but it happened. So any given Saturday, man, that's how it goes. It can happen just like that. Ask the Matt Serras of the world. Ask the Calvin Gastelums of the world. What happens when someone's a huge favorite and you don't give a shit about any of that stuff? Lives change, man. Circumstances change because you walk in there and you don't give a shit about any of the hype. You don't fight hype. You fight people. You fight men. You fight women. Hype's a bunch of bullshit that someone else made up. That's got nothing to do with you. So if people keep buying the Ronda Rousey hype, one of these girls is going to say, I don't give a shit about any of that stuff, and they're just going to walk in there, pop her right in her nose, and the whole fight's going to change. So I want to go ahead and move on for a second to talk about Brian Caraway and give him his props. Speaking to Miesha Tate, I mean, for the most part, he was just Mr. Miesha Tate, carrying purses and whatnot. What do you think? What do you think about his performance? It was on short notice, and is he starting to shed that Mr. Miesha Tate business?
Dude, that's a ruthless comment you made right there. Yeah, I mean, yeah. He's his own individual, and I think I give him props. Man, he came in beginning of the week, looked great during. I should say this: he looked great conditioning for coming in on short notice in the first couple of rounds. He lasted because I think because of the conditioning, won in the third round and won it off that guillotine choke. So yeah, I give him props. He definitely stepped up, and that shit fucking wins huge bonus points with Dana White when a dude comes in, steps in on short notice, and then you win by a choke, and then you talk him into giving him more bonuses. Dude, I think Dana White likes this kid, especially because he's taking fights on short notice and then delivers, and it was a good fight. It was actually a good fight. So.
Well, before we get into our finished strongs, I want to ask you a quick question about the Caraway Miesha Tate business. It's funny. I wonder if they're going to get like a tabloid nickname like Benifer or some shit like that. So I don't even know, Caratate or some shit like that. So what do you think about? On Twitter, there's this big thing now. It's hashtag Just Coast, and I guess where it came from was. In Caraway's fight prior to this, Miesha Tate was in his corner. She thought he was up 2-0, which he wasn't. And in the corner, she said, "Don't worry, just coast," in the third round. Let me ask you a question, man. Never mind Brian Caraway. What does that say to you about Miesha Tate? Does that give you any kind of insight into who she is?
No, I mean, listen, she was in his corner. She thought he was up 2-0, and it definitely wasn't the situation. I don't think you ever should tell a fighter to coast. Maybe it's the lack of experience in a corner. And she's a fighter. She should know that in the UFC, you don't let shit go to the judges' cards because you never know who's going to win that shit. So, it's probably a little bit of inexperience of being in the corner in a big fight of the UFC like that. So I think she'll probably learn from that and know from now on that she won't be speaking that kind of language in the corner next time.
And in fairness to Caraway, I mean, it's sort of this thing that's being used on Twitter to bust Miesha Tate's balls, but, Caraway did the exact opposite against Johnny Bedford. He didn't just coast. I mean, he got the submission late in the third. So props to him, man. He's like, I'm not letting this go to the judges. I'm taking it out of their hands right now and choke this kid out. So, big props to him for figuring out that, assessing things. You caught some shit on Twitter, but you looked at the reality of it and moved forward. All right, so we're going to get to our finished strongs. Go ahead and put it into this thing. So my finished strong is going to be about Daniel Cormier. Daniel, I think that you need to figure out what's what, man. If you want to be the heavyweight champion of the world, then leave AKA and move on. But if you want to honor the fact that you're Cain Velasquez's coach, and it's not fair that you've coached him, and now you would use some of the information you gained as his coach, and then fight him. I respect that. I really do. Then get your ass to 205, man. Start, call up Mike Dolce, and let's get this thing figured out, because this screwing around at heavyweight and taking fights, and all you're doing is kind of screwing over the division. So now all these other guys are like, do you need to, is it an ego thing where you need to be the number one contender in both divisions, or you need to, if you got business at heavyweight, to stay at heavyweight and go be champ. That's one thing I got to respect about Chael Sonnen. Chael Sonnen says, whatever division I'm in, I'm going for the belt. If I'm not going for the belt, then why am I even in the division? So, which kind of concerns me about whether or not he'll take the Vanderlei fight, but because I really want to see it. But back to Cormier, dude, you either got to get your ass to 205, and in doing so, shrink the size of your ass. But either do that or stay at heavyweight and fight Cain, or figure it out, man. Let's get to business. It's enough with this screwing around and being uncertain as to where you want to take fights. I agree with you, TJ, and that the Nelson fight doesn't do him any good if his future's at 205. So, come on, Cormier, get to 205 or, get the blast in your friend, one or the other.
All right, my finish strong tonight is just a little, I don't know if it's really a finish strong as in calling people out or doing this. This is what I think. I think Anderson Silva needs to go and finish Chris Weidman. I think he needs to go do that. And I think we need to see a super fight with John Jones and Anderson Silva. That's what I'm asking for. I would fly to Dallas. I'm going to go to that fight. If it's in Brazil, I might have to sell my fucking firstborn, but I'm going to Brazil. I'm going to go check that fight out because I think it could be one for the ages. And that's definitely what we want to see. You're talking about super fights, and let's call it a super fight and let's do it. That's really all I got to say, man, is the fight at 205 for the light heavyweight title belt. Because Anderson Silva has nothing to prove if he beats Weidman down at 185. Let's move up. Let's challenge for the belt. Let's make it a super fight. Let's sell out the fucking Cowboy Stadium. Jerry Jones, you can take me later for this one because I'm pulling your plug. Dude, what better fucking fight than doing it 100 and some thousand seats and selling that bitch out and watching Anderson Silva fight John Jones? You tell me what's better than that right now.
There's nothing better than that, and I think that if Anderson Silva's smart, which I believe he is, he needs to really take your advice and understand how much money knocking Chris Weidman out in the first round. The fight's going to make money, no matter what. But if he goes in there and runs through Chris Weidman, now you go to Dana White and you go, you know what? I want $20 million to fight John Jones. I want $15 million to fight. I mean, depending on what you think these guys are making now.
Listen. Yeah. You imagine if you went to Dallas Cowboy Stadium and you sold that bitch out, there's 100-some thousand seats there. You start down low at $25,000, I'm sure they'll go for a fucking ringside. Then you move up to layers. Do you know how much money just the gate is going to bring on off that? Don't even mention the fucking goddamn pay-per-view buys. You could fucking set that pay-per-view buy at fucking $75 to $100 and people are going to buy that shit. That, I'm telling you what. Listen, those two dudes that will fight could walk away from that fight, both of them retire, and we can never see them again because they have so much fucking money. It's going to help, one, to help the UFC because it's going to bring in a lot more fans. It's going to help Dallas because they can bring in all those people at the hotel, so it's bringing in economy. So you got all that. I mean, it's right there. It's all lined up, brother. Let's do it.
Let me get your thoughts on this. What do you think it takes to get in the building at Dallas Cowboy Stadium if those two fight? Cheapest seat in the house, how much?
Cheapest seat in the house? I bet you, since it's so big, and they do have a big board, but I'm telling you, the cheapest seat in the house, you could probably sell it for the top level for $50, $25, $50, because it's pretty. I mean, I've been in that stadium, bro, and that's fucking huge. Then you got.
You think that's cheap?
Oh yeah, dude. Because I mean, you're with a little bitty ring. It's not like you're watching football. You're watching the fucking middle, down low, in the middle, and you open it up. You open up the whole stadium for fans. I guarantee you can sell that bitch out. You go up top level.
No, I think you could. I think you could sell it out. I'm just wondering. I was thinking 150, man, just to get in the seat. Even a bad seat. You don't think that's too much? Just for the whole thing of saying, yeah, I was at this fight. I was, I mean, obviously you're gonna watch the whole goddamn thing on a big screen anyway if you're sitting in the shitty seat. So I mean, but is it? I don't know, man. I think they can get 150 for the cheapest seat.
You could get 150 from it, but I mean that's you go in, walk in that stadium, you'll see what I'm talking about. Upper level like that, the very top level, $50. I mean, because you're gonna have to watch the fight on the big screen because you're not gonna see it fucking up that high. But you get down in those lower seats, and then they bring out all they can spread retractable seats. They can add more seats like that down lower, and then you bring out like they did for the March Madness. You line it up around there like that. They bring in stands. You sell those tickets, man, for fucking $300 to $500, and then 4 seats, dude. You have motherfuckers gonna be paying big bucks for that. $25,000, I guarantee, for ringside. Motherfuckers will give up that for it. So yeah, and 100. You just average it out. Let's just average it out and say the average ticket cost $250 or $300. Multiply that by fucking 120,000 or 115,000. Get the fuck out, dog. That's some serious. Yeah, add it up. Add it up on your calculator right there.
Let me check it out. Hold on. Let's do the numbers here.
Yeah.
So you said what?
Serious coin, man.
You said 250 is the average, right?
Yeah.
Times 115,000, 16,000 seats.
Yeah.
I did 111. It's $27 million.
Yep, 27 million, and that's not even the average price because you have to drop down. Like you can probably play 30. We could say the fucking average ticket price could be like $500. Then now you're looking at even fucking more money.
Then you got $1 million.
Then
if you put it, then you put it in a stadium that isn't really affiliated with either guy. So everybody in Brazil's buying the fight. Everybody, you know what I'm saying? So,
no,
I don't know.
Dude,
yeah, man. It's a million pay-per-view buys.
Dude, you sell it for $100 pay-per-view. The first time it's ever $100. Do that by $2 million at $100.
Yeah, it's crazy. So but do you think he needs to be impressive against Weidman to get the ante up?
I'm telling you, like you said, you go in there and knock him out in the first round. You can say, as a matter of fact, if you knock him out in the first round, you stand up to Joe Rogan and be like, book Texas right now. John Jones, me, you, Texas, fucking 6 months. Let's do it.
$20 million. You just walk out.
20. Those motherfuckers, I guarantee will get $50 million plus a piece. Easy.
I don't know, man. We'll have to see. All right, so another one's in the books. You got me now excited for John Jones, Anderson Silva, not like I wasn't before, but you got me on a different level now, man. I really want to see Anderson go out there and do some things. And Weidman, man, he's pretty sticking to his. He's gonna upset all these super fights. All right, guys. Follow us at the Hot Cage Daily. Read us on Cage Wall. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got a lot of things coming. We're trying to branch out. We're trying to get some syndication on some different sites. So you'll be seeing us in the near future. We're gonna have some more interesting people on. Keep watching the fights, and we're gonna end this podcast as we end them all. Keep your chin down and your hands up. This is the Hot Cage Podcast.